I want to watch this, like, Riot Froxen video. Where is it? Yes, dude, this one right here. One Rioter versus 20 Redditors. I think this is going to be, like, some of the best content I've ever seen. Okay, like, I don't want to, like, hype it up too much, because I haven't seen it. But, it just seems
Losers
like it's
queue doesn't
insane.
exist.
Oh my god, this thing's 45 minutes long? That's insane. Okay. That's insane. Okay. Hold on, let's test the volume levels first. How are we feeling about the volume levels?
The devil, he's in front of me.
Yeah.
I think maybe a little bit higher.
There's other champions that are functionally Labubus.
Sorry, what is
What do we
the
think?
champion being a Labubu?
For the conspiracy theorists out there, you can just shake my hand.
I think that's
tell me
probably
what this
about
will
right.
do, And I'll just believe you forever.
I shouldn't have worn an undershirt. That was a bad move. I'm Riot Froxon, lead gameplay designer for League of Legends, and I'm surrounded by 20 Redditors.
20, dude, okay, I'll start this off, guys. Right away, if I'm ever surrounded by 20 Redditors, I know I'm in the wrong place, okay? That's not where you want to be.
On League of Legends. My first take is Mel is a balanced champion.
Ooh, Mel is a balanced champion. Okay, I mean, I'm going to say Mel is not balanced. I think Mel's too weak. I'm going to be honest. I think Mel is too weak. Let's see what they say. I think Mel's too weak, though. Oh, here he comes. Let's hope this is not a Mel enthusiast.
Alright. Oh. Okay. Saying Mel is balanced is inherently just a nothing burger statement.
Sure.
We, as the player base, don't care whether Mel is like statistically balanced. Like, wow, she's 46% win rate. Like, I'm still contracting incurable illnesses playing against this.
Okay, I mean, like, that's insanely based. Like, he's kind of right for that. I actually think that is extremely true, by the way. Like, there's a lot of champions that have been OP for a while, and but because people don't perceive them as being, like, annoying, like, it's kind of fine, right? Like, a good example would be Ori. Like, I think outside of the very highest elos, like, no one really thinks Ori's a problem, even though, to be honest, like, if Ori's played really well, like, she's extremely cancer, but she never really gets banned, right? Like, even when she's really, really overpowered, like, she's only getting banned in competitive games, but, like, Mel, despite being, like, complete trash, does get banned all the time. I'm glad this guy said that, because that is extremely true. And there's a lot of other champs like this. You know, there's so many fucking cringe champs in this game. I think one thing that's really important as well with balance is, like, it should be roughly, I think anyway, as difficult to execute something as it is to counter. So, like, if something's really easy to pull off, like, I don't know, what's a good example right now? Like, Sona would be a good example. Then I think it's also fair that it's easy to counter with, like, say, Shield Cut or something. But it's actually really difficult to play into stuff like Lux that's super forgiving, or Sona that is just, like, super AoE. It's very, very hard, right? I think that's, like, a balancing lever that Riot doesn't really think about. Can you post on YouTube? Yeah, I
Like,
will.
regardless of which role she's in, if she's on mid or bot or support. And I think this comes down to a few things. Like, obviously the W is important, right? And I think
Yeah.
it's cool, but also, like, if I'm playing against a mage who's, like, not subhuman and they have, like,
Not
W
subhuman.
like, I, as a melee champ or an assassin, have very little opportunity to bait this out, especially in a fight. Like, in lane, I think it's fine. And I think the changes you did were, like, okay,
Interesting.
abilities that aren't
Dude, that's kind of an
targeted at-
interesting take. I actually think the opposite. I think Mel W is, like, way more
her.
skillful in team fights because you can reflect, like, these big ultis and stuff. Whereas I think in lane, it's super annoying because it's like there is not that much skill to Mel W in lane. You know, like, she basically just presses it and it's like a soft immunity and it probably reflects, like, your one trading spell, you know? So I think the other way around. I kind of like the Mel reflect, but I almost wish that it was, like, I don't know, it gave, like, no shield or anything at all, and didn't give, like, an MS amp or something. I don't know.
Like, don't get reflected. I think that's good. But, like, it's not.
Oh
just
my
the-
god, they're all
the fact
flaming him for that.
Q is, like, undodgeable for, like, a decent amount of time.
One of the things that we feel pretty strongly about is that champions in League of Legends need to have a wide range of experiences when they're either
Hey,
played
what does that
as or
mean?
played against. And Mel is one that has very wide ranges of experiences. Same with Yasuo, right? So she can have situations where there's just, like, sometimes nothing you can do in a situation where Mel is ahead and, you know, it's hard to get on her and it's hard to bait out her W. But we think that that's okay. And there are
That's an interesting take, by the way. I don't want to, like, spam pause the whole video, but, like, I think Riot have definitely tried to lean in more to, like, champions should be something that you can, like, one trick or main. Whereas I feel like a game like Dota, it's kind of expected that you play lots of different champs, right? So I think in Dota, they can make it, like, more specialized. You can make things that are specifically only meant to be played in specific scenarios. But I feel like now, with like new champs especially, they can just do everything because these champs are meant to be played all the time. I think.
Situations where that has to be okay for either games to end or for champions to feel like they're strong, right? Like if somebody was 12-0 on Rengar, for example, would we expect there to be counterplay to Rengar in that situation? Like,
Okay.
yes,
that's fair.
right. Like, not really, right?
Yeah.
And so the same is true for Mel, right? In the cases where you're saying, hey, like hit them with 2 Qs and press Alt, that only really happens either if she got in range of someone who's really squishy, in which case they probably mispositioned, or Mel was a god or something like that. And does Mel deserve to win in those instances? Like, probably, right?
I mean,
And
no,
so-
Mel never deserves to win, okay? Let's be honest, guys. Like, regardless of what he's saying here, like, Mel players don't deserve to win.
One of the foundational premises of League of Legends is that when you get super ahead, you're allowed to feel awesome. And so the thing I would contest is basically, in a state where she's even, she gets to do that, which I don't think is the case.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I overall, like, kind of agree with that. I mean, I personally, like, Mel's annoying, but I don't actually have, like, huge problems with Mel. I think the champ is, like, not that good.
Wait.
Oh my god, bro, she fucking just, like, speed ran it.
Hi, Matt. It's nice to meet you. I already introduced myself. Okay, I disagree. I think Mel is a fundamentally unbalanced champion, and I think
Okay.
it's because of her W, right? Because with champions who have similar like projectile reflecting like Yasuo and Samira, a lot of that is balanced by the fact that they're more melee or champions who usually have a more feast or famine playstyle, where and that's like their only defensive tool in order to gap close and stay healthy in lane. However, I think with Mel, her role as a mage kind of changes how powerful that W is on her. That part is like fundamentally unbalanced for other champions to play against.
There's a few things that you're bringing up that are really reasonable. Some of the things that I think that you're saying are certain champions shouldn't be so polarizing in terms of having, you know, really strong counter matchups to certain things, right? Like you're saying, hey, if I'm playing Seraphine into Mel, that's a really frustrating experience sometimes because
Yeah,
the
that
burden
shit's
for me
super
to play
annoying.
against Mel, it seems like she has a basic ability that can kind of nullify my whole kit, and the R is a large part of my power budget. The question I kind of have is around what makes League of Legends fun to play in the long term?
Nothing. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
And
Kind of.
typically when humans kind of interact with things that are difficult or hard to play against, their initial reaction is not, oh, this was really hard to play against, I give up. It's, oh, this was really hard to play against and I need to find a way to get around it, or I need to find a way to overcome it. Like if my sibling beats me in a game, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, sorry, like you won.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, let's pause for that for a second. I think there's a big difference between there being counterplay in-game and being counterplay out of game. Because, like, okay, he's right. Like, there is counterplay to Mel. But most of the counterplay to Mel is in champion select. You know, it's, like, not so much in the game. Like, okay, you could say, I'm just going to hold my Seraphine ult until Mel uses W. But, like, let's be honest, like, the Seraphine ult is so much more important to Seraphine than the Mel W is to Mel. And if the answer, or if like, the counterplay is, oh, like, I just, like, lost in champ select, I think that's really shit. And there's, like, other things in the game like this that piss me off, too. And a good example is tanks. You know, there's a lot of comps where you just don't have a way of killing a tank. And you're kind of fucked, and you don't have a way of dealing with it in game. Or another one would be with shield cut, or even heal cut. Sometimes you just don't have the champs that can apply this. And personally, while I think that champ select is like skillful, I just don't think that's where the skill should come from for solo queue, because you can't really coordinate your team comp with the rest of your team in the way that you can in a competitive game. So like, I think a lot of these champs don't actually have counterplay to Mel in game, and yes, you could argue drafting better, but I just think like the draft better thing is like kind of a meme for solo queue. I don't know, because it's like, well, what do you do if your teammates draft wrong or you don't draft together as a group? And like, that's totally normal when it's like random solo queue, right?
Yeah, I give up, right? I'm going to try and find a way. Oh, I really want to beat that person. And that's kind of one of the secret sources of League of Legends. And so to the question of whether there should be things that make it very difficult to play against a certain champion, you know, something that you would consider, you know, Silas picking into Malphite, for example. You know, a Malphite player might consider that as a really tough matchup to play against, and I agree, right? But we should have those things in the game.
Interesting.
Because it's valuable for players to play against things that are quite difficult to play against and form a plan to be able to find how they're going to play against the next game, right? Like assassins fall into this camp, really hard counters fall into this camp. Now,
I don't know if I like fully agree with that. I kind of get what he's saying. Like, I do kind of agree, but I think I think it's like too skewed almost. You know what I mean? I think the punishment is like too harsh, probably.
Definitely overdo it by just having too many of those. But that's the reason why we have them in the game. And we always try and push the limits of how acceptable is
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
you
I mean,
know,
that's what he's saying.
top end of that, and how much can that make the experience, you know, difficult to play against, and how
Yeah.
upsetting is that for players. So we try and balance that carefully, but that's why we do it.
Damn, voted out. See ya, nerd.
I'll see you, Matt.
Okay, sorry.
Who's next? Who's next on the chopping block? Whoa, dude, these people feel so strongly about Mel.
Goodness gracious.
What the hell? They just gave it up?
Very careful
These are
with
not
this.
real League players, by the way.
What a gentleman.
Okay, so I don't believe that Mel is balanced, but I'm kind of playing devil's advocate in where I think you guys shouldn't have nerfed her. I think you guys
Yeah,
kinda
actually, I agree with
stripped
that.
her of her uniqueness by taking away her invulnerability. I think that there are other ways, like he was saying, with like changing the passive, because I don't think that she is unbalanced. I think she's a frustrating champion to play against.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
She had in February, I think her win rate went down to like 42%. Right now it's at 46 in Masters Plus, and I think it's like 48 Emerald Plus. So she's underwhelming right now. But I think that there are other problems in her kit that pose the problem. I think she's just a frustrating champion. League of Legends in the past year of 2025 did a really great job at listening to the community, and the community.
Oh, okay. Vote her out, boys. Vote her out. What is she saying? That is such bullshit, by the way. Vote her out.
Frustrated playing against her. And I think there are several other
Guys,
champions that are
Atacon was in this game for an entire year, and you think that the Riot listed a community? Like, hell
to play
no.
against that have gone unresolved. Tom Kinch, Fizz. Fizz
Okay, Fizz, she's
invulnerability,
kinda
like, he can
based.
go invulnerable. What is it, like every 8 seconds at max rank?
Yep.
Mel's invulnerability is what, 25 max rank? Something like that. So I don't think it's she was overpowered. I think she's just frustrating.
Yeah. So I agree with that take. I think that, so one of the things that I'm going to touch on here is Fizz is a melee champion, right?
Okay.
And melee champions in general need a lot of tools to be able to overcome ranged. Because
Right.
one of the jokes that we have internally is that the most overpowered thing in League of Legends is the ranged basic attack.
Okay.
Because it's just so powerful,
Yeah, that's
especially on
pretty
AD
fair, to be
carry.
honest.
And so the melee champions, which, you know, I agree that they can be frustrating, and
That's why they
you know,
have
they
D-Shield's
need these
second
tools
win.
to be able to survive. Now that's, you know, something we could debate, of course, but in the flip case, we have champions like Amundo or something that can kind of just run at you and hit you repeatedly because they don't have those tools to be, you know, like very tricky. And one of the things that's really important for frustrating champions, or champions that the community perceives as frustrating, is that we have them because players need to be able to form plans around things that are interesting, right? And now we don't want to have too many frustrating champions, because sometimes players need to be able to form a plan around something. And if you have to form a plan around Rengar and Mel and, you know, insert a number of champions that the community perceives as
Like
frustrating,
Ambessa,
changes your game plan
Casante, Zahan,
significantly,
every
that
newly
can become
released
unfun.
champion.
And so we want to have the right number of frustrating champions, or the right number of frustrating experiences, ones that are difficult to play against, so that we have that level of ups and downs. You know, like we don't want League of Legends to be a game where every game you leave, you're like, wow, that was a very pleasant experience, right? Like,
Wait, wait, isn't that a good thing? I guess what he's saying is like he doesn't want it to be like very samey. You know, that's what he's saying. But like, dude, when I hear that, when they're like, dude, I would hate for the players to be having fun. That's just, I get what he meant. He just, you know, and it's hard, by the way, to make sure you say the exact right thing when you're like in an interview or whatever. But the way that sounds is like, dude, he's like, fuck these guys. Like, I hope they do not have fun playing my game.
You know, feels bad, right? And kind of like I said before, if you lose in League of Legends and you feel bad, the reaction is not, I want to give up necessarily. It can be that if it happens too often, but really the reaction is, wow, I want to see how I can beat that next time. And that's one of the things that we think is the secret to League of Legends having such a long lifespan.
Dude, no, he's mislabeling I want to beat that as tilt queuing, okay? Like, straight up. That's tilt queuing.
That there is the right balance of things being frustrating and things being easier to play against. And so we try and, you know, finely tune that balance. And so, yeah, I think broadly speaking, like your points make sense and are accurate. And
Do you
it
think
is
he's
kind of an
balanced?
intentional choice. Yeah.
Do you think he's balanced?
I think Mel's pretty balanced, yeah. I think she has a wide spectrum of scenarios where she can feel unbalanced or can feel not very useful, right? But
Six
overall,
down.
Mel's a pretty balanced champion, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We need a new question, by the way. Like,
My next topic
Okay,
is
finally.
each role has a similar influence on the game.
ooh. Okay, I'm assuming they mean similar power because like the roles obviously are like very different. Similar power. I don't know. What do you guys think of this one? I would say probably yes overall, but I also think that there's just certain parts of the game that are more impactful than others. You know what I mean? Like in a 40-minute game, clearly 80 carry is going to be like really impactful, right? And to be honest, like 80 carry is like a lot better early game this season than it used to be. But I think it's pretty undeniable that like jungle absolutely has the most influence on the early game, right? And ultimately like early game is the most important. So I think this is not true. And even if it were true, by the way, I think there's like a vast difference in how easy it is to have that impact. Like take a look at, say, like roaming supports. It is much, much easier to roam mid than it is to counter a support roam mid. And I think that's kind of annoying too. Dude, everyone jumped up for that one. Some strong feelings.
Sorry. Hi, nice to meet you,
Hi.
Matthew.
Nice to meet you.
So I believe that I know that the purpose of the game is that every person has their own role to play within.
Mhm.
So like the top laner will be trying to be the powerhouse and whatnot, but there are definitely roles that have more impact on the game, and I'd say by far it would be the jungler.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Because
like
the jungler has access
most
to all
lukewarm take
other
ever.
roles in a sense and can act as another laner or as a power force to either equalize a lane from someone being behind or to push someone who's already ahead. It's like we often hear the terms like playing for like top or playing for bot. But in addition to that, junglers also have the ability to make calls on the map and influence how their laners play to specifically get objectives. So like often when I play jungle, I will say that I want to wait for mid lane to push in, or I want the bot lane to aggressively push in now so that I can
Yeah,
get
they're
the
like definitely the
dragon. And in
catalyst
doing
for
so,
everything,
then that
pretty
would
much.
affect their decisions on how to play.
So how do you think about as a jungler, if the top laner goes 0-3 or the bot laner is, goes 0-6 and you feel like, you can't do anything because they died 3 times in lane, how do you kind of determine that one of those things is more or less powerful than the other one?
Well, typically, from my perspective, I think about what would be the best option. There'd be 3 options. There would be to try and bring top back into the game, and by extension leaving bot, or try to bring bot back into the game, or focusing on myself and trying to become the main driving force behind victory. And I think that would really depend on like the current state of how things are looking, or as well as like perhaps the champions that they're playing or what we're playing into, or how the game has been progressing so far.
Yeah. But when you're saying you think jungle is too impactful, right? In a situation where junglers can gank lanes, and that's true, and they can impact lanes a lot.
Didn't
Lanes
even bring
can
up
also
mid,
just
true.
die repeatedly by themselves, right? Or you could get counter jungled because you have a bad matchup, right? Like what leads you to the conclusion that that action that you're taking as a jungler is more powerful or more impactful than something that would happen in another lane?
I think that intrinsically,
I mean, I think this is just like it's kind of comes down to like how easy it is to make happen, right? Like let's be honest, like let's say you're playing mid. It is way, way, way harder to solo kill the enemy mid than it is to 2v1, right? Like because obviously like just numbers advantage makes life easier, right? Like you can lean on the lane, you can like bring more pressure. And I think that like, is it possible that bot lane goes 0-3 naturally? Like, yeah, it can happen. But like, let's be honest, like most of the time that lanes, especially in high ranks, are like truly blowing up, it's because of applied pressure from elsewhere. And jungle is the one that chooses that and can like really turn a lane that's like quite close or quite volatile into a game that's like really one-sided. Like for example, let's say you're like heavy trading bot, right? And it basically comes down to, well, whichever jungler gets there first is going to be in a really good spot, because it's not always the case that you can actually just leave your lane or respect the gank. Obviously, you can be like somewhat aware of it, and you probably even know it's coming, but like, what are you going to do? It's like, well, if you base, you might be fucked, and if you stay, it's like, well, hopefully my jungler gets there first, So I don't know. I think this is just like, again, it's like an how easily can you make a lane win as a jungler compared to how easily can you win a lane naturally? And it's like clearly way easier to snowball a lane as a jungler.
Because of a jungler's position to affect every lane by will of their own choosing, instead of particularly being restricted to like my top lane, I have to push top. I think that because the jungler is given the ability to affect these lanes as well as make calls on the map to secure specific objectives, that they would have more impact on the game overall.
Yeah. So would you say that, for example, a roaming support would have similar levels of influence to a jungler?
Yes.
Even though they can't like fight people, for example.
I would say
Oh, bro,
definitely
they
support-
can fight people. Has this guy never fought Leona before? No, I mean, that's like totally true. I mean, roaming sports have a lot of impact for sure, but guys, they can fight people. I don't know if you guys have ever tried to battle a Leona in the river or something at level 3, but like if you're a mid laner and you run into a Leona who's like even a level down on you, like you've got to be insanely scared, you know? Like that, it's not even close actually. Like she will destroy you.
also has a very high impact, but I think arguably a little less than jungler because they aren't specifically geared to secure objectives and to gank other lanes, but they do also have a very effective way of influencing the map with vision and other aspects.
What I'm trying to get at is, I agree that roles have different strengths and weaknesses. What leads you to the conclusion that one of them is more or less powerful?
Oh no, he's fumbling.
I would say just intrinsically their purpose in the game. And the purpose of jungler being to swing objectives or to influence how a lane state progresses.
I would say it's mostly just to do with the timing. Like they get to do it first, and like that naturally has a lot of value. Oh my god, they got Core JJ.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, I'm Core JJ. I'm a professional support player.
Big fan.
I think my take is like in terms of lane itself, maybe bot lane might be the most impactful lane, only because you are playing 2 people for the bot lane.
Who's the guy on the left? He's a
mid
like
lane is
Riot
most-
design lead.
Most
Or balance lane or
impactful
something.
because like you are literally playing in the mid lane by yourself.
Yeah.
I think Riot probably also realized that. That's why they nerfed the mid lane gold gap, and then like minion speeds, etc. So many things. But even though they changed a lot, I think the location mid laners are in are too impactful.
Damn,
Like,
that
you
guy
can
fucking
impact-
agrees.
You can influence into both side lane, and you can influence on both like side of jungle. Both laners are too impactful. So I think not a complicated reason. Simply because mid lanes are played in the mid lane, like are most important lane, most important like by alone.
Yeah.
In a late game, like in the same reason, like if ADCs are going mid, the mid lanes are still most important. So that's why like most NA RAM is going on.
Sure.
Everyone comes to the mid.
Do you think that there are ways for us to balance mid lane versus bot lane versus top lane, because mid lane has less gold than bot lane and mid lane has less XP than top lane? Do you think that there's a world where those could be balanced?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna
think
say
It
no.
should be balanced.
Oh, okay. You don't think?
Yeah,
it
no,
should be
actually,
balanced?
I agree with Core there. I agree with Core. Like, I don't think. I think somewhat just the way the game is designed, like that's just gonna be how it is, you know. And I don't think there's ever a world where like everything is gonna be perfectly balanced. And even if it is, like it probably wouldn't be fun, right? Like if they made it so there was just you load in a game, you flip a coin, 50% chance you win, 50% chance you lose. Like it would be balanced, right? But it wouldn't be fun at all. So I don't know. Even though the roles are like quote unquote imbalanced, I don't think it's bad as long as again it's not frustrating. Like players will put up with a lot as long as it doesn't feel annoying to verse. And I think jungle definitely can feel pretty frustrating because it's much easier for a jungler to punish you than it is for you to punish a jungler. Like if a jungler comes mid and you chunk him, like it's not even bad.
What I'm disagreeing with is that every role is balanced.
I see.
I don't think every role can be balanced.
Yeah, I agree
because
with
of
that.
where it is right now.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a portal in the maps like you can teleport from side to side. So mid lane has to be most important lane. But because it is center of the map, like you're just naturally too important.
What about a world where mid laners just had a lot less gold than bot lane? or a world where mid lane has just had a lot less XP than top lane? Do you think that that could be balanced even though they're in the center of the map?
I think that's what happening with a
Yeah.
casting.
Yeah. So do you think it's balanced then?
Even though it is not balanced, like especially like in terms of like pro level game, like mid lane has like early game impacts a lot of situation because of like your quest is literally give you extra money in early game, and then fast tempo game.
Yeah.
So it will still make your top laner and bot laner strong. Like it's not you have a mid lane, you don't have a top laner and bot laner. You have a top laner and bot laner with a higher XP and higher gold, that you make them stronger easily.
Yeah.
So I would say mid lane is still most impactful.
Yeah. So your argument is that mid lane makes bot lane and top lane strong, or can make bot lane and top lane strong, and therefore it's the most impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's certainly some truth to that, because it's one of the reasons why we wanted to make top lane have more levels and have bot lane have more
Touch my
autonomy,
gold or XP.
so that every role feels like it's got something different and impactful. And that's the job of the mid laner to play in the game. But then at the point where they've done that, then their job is done. And I think if there's confusion about which roles are the most powerful, I think if we were to ask, all the people in the room, they would probably say a different role is the most powerful. I think that kind of means that we've succeeded. You know what I mean?
I think you would overwhelmingly see like jungle, then support, then mid. And like I'm not sure I like fully agree with this, but I still think it's like pretty much inarguable that like jungle is the most. Is that Corte J? Yeah, there's Raz is there as well, and there's someone else I recognize. I think isn't this like this is like an NA player, isn't he? I think so.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think top and AD are really strong.
I will say that I definitely agree with what Zandy was saying about junglers, but I think more broadly, just roles that have a lot more influence on macro will have a lot more influence on the game itself. And so whether or not you have impact, I guess, like to your team and the outcome of the game, I would say is much more on roles with macro, like that being jungler or roaming supports or also mid.
See, like, again, I just think that's like a timing thing. Like, for example, mid lane has a shit ton of impact in the, like, mid game, especially with, like, side lane. But I think, okay, let's imagine a world like this. Let's imagine roaming support couldn't roam until 15 minutes. Do you guys think it would be strong? Like, I don't think it would. I think it's way more about the timing. It's the fact that you can like do stuff early, and early stuff impacts everything that comes later. And especially with how snowboy the game is now, like with quests, with the fucking crystal things, with all the extra plate gold, like being able to snowball the game early is super huge, Like you can make the game incredibly fast. And so like naturally, if the game is quote unquote over before it's your turn to really play, that feels really bad. Thoughts on mid lane impact in Season 26? I mean, I think mid lane is still quite strong. I definitely don't think mid lane is weak, but, I think mid lane is quite frustrating. Like, I think that, just the fact that support and jungle have so much influence over your lane. Like, take a look at my last game, it's super annoying. Jungle by default is the most impactful role. Yeah, that's what I think so too, because, like, they can just make the quickest play. Like, even bot lane, right? Like, they will be able to impact... Sorry, jungle will be able to impact bot lane first. Like, a lot of the time, even the roaming support being unlocked is because the jungler ganks bot, right? And now suddenly bot lane's winning, so now, like, the support can roam, and so on and so forth. Do you think scaling junglers are weak then? Because you think jungle really controls early game? I would say so, yes. I mean, I think the meta... Like, okay, scaling is OP in solo queue, especially in lower ranks, because it's just easier to play, okay? But there's a reason why in the highest ranks, the meta junglers are all like Xin Zhao, Vi, Viego, Jarvan, Lee Sin, right? It's like AD jungler, CC mid, right? Aurora, Ryze, Ahri, etc. Things that can like 2v2, 3v3, and like you'll see a lot of like Leona and Nautilus and stuff like this. Now, there's more enchanters this season. That's just because of like the support changes and stuff. But like overall, again, there's a reason why you're playing like AD ganking junglers.
Can be greatly impacted, obviously, by having a good person, a good player in one of those roles. But also, if you have someone that is worse, it's going to be worse for your team.
Oh, yeah, true. Like, guys, autofill jungle. I mean, maybe my last jungle wasn't autofill, but like, autofill jungle is an insta loss almost.
A role that requires high macro like that. Like, sure, you could have a less mechanically skilled jungler, but if they know the macro to play jungler, then they will perform better than someone that might be more mechanically skilled or more mechanically gifted, but just has less macro.
Yeah. Let's take this argument to the extreme. Let's say that we tripled AD carry's damage, but we halved their move speed. Would you say that that role has a lot of macro capability?
I would say like potentially in their lane, but not across like the entire map.
Do you think that that version of AD carry is impactful?
Certainly. I'm not saying AD carry is not impactful right now as it is.
Good response.
I'm also saying that I just think that the impact that you have as a role like support or as a role like jungle, like influences what happens for your team more than the other roles. Like if you are a better player, you will do better if you're in one of those roles. Like you will have more influence over your team's performance in one of those roles. If you're a worse player, it will impact your team more if you're put in one of those roles.
Yeah, but to imagine a world where the AD carry in this instance is kind of like a walking turret, for example, you would probably think that
would be quite fun.
character is like quite powerful, right? Because that character doesn't have that much macro.
I know, guys. Like if they tripled AD carry's damage for both sides, would it just be that the jungler is still the most impactful? I mean, I'm honestly not sure. Would that just be like the junglers just run straight bot, and then again, whichever jungler gets there first and like amplifies the lane wins? Like, I'm actually not sure what that would look like. I mean, obviously it means that AD carry carries like a greater weight of the game overall, but I suspect that like if jungle, okay, like what I'm thinking here is like, do you guys remember way back in, I think it was 2017 when it was like the Ardent Sensor meta, right? And it was like the first ADC, or rather the first support to hit Ardent Sensor to buff their AD was just Thanos. And I could see it being the exact same thing, where it's like, well, if your team's mid and jungle or whatever plays for your bot lane first, and you're the one that like makes the difference, and that just like snowballs even harder. Like I'm actually not sure that would change. I'm honestly not sure that would change. And I mean that. Like I don't know. It'd be interesting to see.
Would that, you know,
make jungle even more OP because whoever influences bot for the most wins? Yeah, I could see that. I honestly could.
Being able to play the macro.
All right, I think that it does outweigh, or like it can get to the point, and finding that is like what the hard part is.
Yeah.
It's great to see.
Yeah. My next topic is losers queue doesn't exist. You belong at your rank.
I mean, dude, I'm so excited to hear what the Redditors say about this one. This is going to be a banger. I mean, I'll say it straight away, guys. Losers queue does exist. And you know why? Because you're all fucking losers. No, I'm just kidding. But, okay, losers queue low-key exists. But it's just because people don't realize how much worse you play when you're tilted. You know, like, okay, I'll give you guys an example. I was coaching a dude today, right? I was coaching a dude who's playing Zoe mid, right? And he warded level 1, and he spotted the jungler, so he knows the jungler's starting topside. And then the enemy jungler, like, I don't know, he clears his camps, he comes bot side, and eventually he gets ganked bot side, and he burns his flash. And then because he burns his flash, they have this, like, 4v4 in the river, like, 2 minutes later or something. And because he has no flash, the entire enemy team lives on, like, literally 1 HP. So what I'm kind of getting at is that it doesn't take much to completely change a game. Like, if that guy had played a tiny bit better, like literally just 1% better, if he had just leaned slightly further up and didn't lose his flash, he would probably get a quadra kill, and like he would be a 4-0, or yeah, 4-0 Zoe instead of like a 0-1 Zoe. And I can remember other times like this in Korea where like the game really early is like literally just like one Nidalee spear away from being like a 2-0 fight compared to like a 0-2 fight. And so if you're tilted and you play like literally 1% worse, or if because you're tilted you make one more mistake in the game, like that can just lose you shit tons of games, you know? And so it does not take much. Like if your gameplay is affected by being tired or being hungry or you know, being frustrated. And it goes the other way, by the way. Like, if you're happy, if you're confident, if your day went fucking awesome, like, you're going to play a lot better. And, like, if you guys want to really look into this sort of stuff, I'd really recommend you watch something like the Race to World First from WoW, because that is, like, a true endurance sport. And you will see what things like being hungry and being tired does to your gameplay. And so, like, yes, losers queue functionally exists because, like, as a human, naturally, you're going to be affected by your losses. It's impossible not to. But you need to, like, minimize that. You need to, like, take breaks. You need to mute chat if that pisses you off. You need to make sure, like, your condition's good. Losers queue does not exist from, like, Riot Games is making you lose your games, you know, and you definitely do belong at your rank. But yeah, I do think losers queue functionally exists, but just not for the reason these people think. Oh my god. Oh my god, he's contesting it. All right. I wish I knew his rank, by the way.
Fellow Australian.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question to you is, if you were designing a rank system to be as engaging as possible, what would be the parameters for that? If you want people
That's
to
like the
play as
broadest
much
question ever.
League as
How do you
possible,
even
rank
answer that?
specifically, what do you think would like cultivate that?
I think just fair matches, fast
Okay.
queue times.
Oh, fair
Yeah, but, like,
matches.
at a-
Match quality that looks good.
well, the match quality this season has been
Yeah, no, he's right
a
for
little
that. That's
speculative.
based.
So like consistently fair games, you would say.
Yeah, consistently fair games. Yeah.
Okay. But I think in terms of the studies that have been done on some other people using like engagement-based matchmaking systems, actually that's not really what keeps people engaged, it seems. It seems like semi-consistently harder, and then easier games at kind of like coming out like cheeseburgers, if you will. Like some cheeseburgers are good, and then some like the quality kind of needs to fluctuate like kind of reliably.
That's
like,
a crazy
do
analogy.
you think that would provide?
Yeah, so I think that there are ways that one could change matchmaking to kind of, let's just say, intercept loss streaks, for example.
Sweeten the mix a little bit.
Totally.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you have different makeups of games that have different shapes, for example, or like keeping games interesting, right?
Yep.
And there are definitely ways that we could do that.
Yep.
We don't.
Okay.
But
It really, yeah, it just.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Like,
sometimes-
I think like the reason they probably don't do that is like, okay, he talks about like different shapes of games. I think they have like enough issues with matchmaking already that like I'm not even sure they could pull this off. Like, I'm sure there's some things they could do. Like, for example, there's some easy ones like you could pair people on like similar like length of like streaks, for example, right? And maybe if you've won a lot, you get paired with some people that have like a lost streak or something, you know? So there's like some easy ways, but I think making like really complicated matchmaking, it's like way more effort than it's worth. And I just think like they probably can't be bothered because like, why would you, you know, like what's the point?
Fourth on this, I'm like a D2 peak kind of player. I don't know. I've played like millions of hands of poker in my life, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm someone who's like very aware of like cosmic variance.
yeah.
And sometimes, man, it feels a little scripted. I think a lot of League players, and you can probably like, we've all hallucinated the same thing at times. Where do you think that comes from?
I think humans in general, not even just players of League of Legends, have a tendency to make theories out of things. Humans are really, really good at pattern recognition. And so they might see something like, oh, I lost 5 games in a row, and it was always my top laner. You know what? I think Riot is making my top laners specifically
Okay,
bad.
you know what happens with this? This is actually something I see in coaching a lot, is people that they do this and then they try and adapt in a way that's like not useful. Like they'll see something like, okay, my bot lane always loses, so I have to make sure I pick a champ that can roam bot. And then they go from playing their like really good Orianna or their really good Syndra, and they start like first timing Galio or something, you know? And it's like, if you just played normally, you would probably go back to winning, but they like overcompensate, and that like fucks their game. I see that quite a bit, and that feeds into the losers queue.
Bad top laners, so I lose.
Yep.
And that's something that people can believe, right? Like, so
yeah. Thanks very much. That was an interesting thought experiment.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, totally.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Damn, we're gonna see some more contesters.
Oh my God, savage! My goodness.
Sorry about the run. I'm gonna be honest. I can't really speak a lot on this just because I actually don't play a lot of ranked.
Okay.
What? Then why did you get up? Hello?
But I actually,
unqualified.
I wanted to
Vote that guy out. Yeah, vote him out right fucking now.
Stop with the vote. Give me 1 second, please. I wanted to talk about what you were talking about previously.
Yeah.
About with the
This guy's gonna talk about losers queue and ARAM mayhem or something. Hey, look, guys, I'll be honest. My ARAM mayhem win rate's not too pretty. If there's a losers queue, it exists in mayhem
now, and it not being a losers queue system.
Yeah.
And kind of maybe that's something that like players hallucinate. And do you see if there's any value in kind of opening up what system you use to show the players like what exactly is going into matchmaking? Because I think part of the problem is that like us as players don't know, and so. Like you could say whatever you want. You could say, you use losers queue, but if we don't know exactly how it works, then like we can continue to cope, right?
Yeah.
And keep saying that.
Dude, I mean,
This is-
look, I'll be honest, guys. Like, even if they released exactly how it worked, people would still cope. They would just say, "Oh, like Riot just like they released like the wrong version, or they, you know, they lied about it." Like, I'm telling you, if people want conspiracy theories or whatever, they will always have those. Doesn't matter how much evidence you show them. There's like nothing you can do. Like me personally, I'm a big Great Ice Wall enjoyer. You know, that's my favorite conspiracy theory. I think that one's a banger. Love seeing that shit when it comes up on my feed.
something that we're experiencing. So is there any way to like kind of make that more transparent instead of like a black box system?
Yeah, sure. So I'll tell you what we do. Our primary goal for matchmaking is to make it so that before the game starts, everybody has a 50% chance to win.
Oof.
So, and that kind of
Oof, that
basically
makes me mad. That makes me mad because like that does not happen, and it's not even close to happening. I'll be honest.
just means that it's a coin flip, right?
I
Like, we
get that that's the intention, but like,
couldn't say
Oof,
if my team's
that
gonna
is
win
so not
or your
true.
team's gonna win, because if that was true, then we would have unbalanced matchmaking,
But
right?
how do you like ensure that before the match
Mhm.
it's a 50-50 chance? Like what goes into that is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because obviously like that's the ideal
Mhm.
is that you have balanced teams.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of factors like with your MMR and your elo.
Yeah, so there's a
that go
few
into
things we
that.
take into consideration. So like your MMR, we'll take into consideration your pre-mades, we'll take into consideration whether you're autofilled or whether you're secondary, and that's basically it, right? We will, and the role preference, right? So, I mean, that kind of ties into autofill.
Big
but
Bumper
those are
10
the only
loss
three
streak was
things we
not
really
losers
consider,
queue.
and we make a fair match. We have a lot
Yup.
of information around what, you know, like if you're playing autofill versus not autofill, how unfair
Dude,
that
okay,
game is,
maybe
and
the
so-
problem with their matchmaking, the reason it's imbalanced, is they're not taking into account enough factors. I want to see things like, I want to see like star signs measured. I want to see like cortisol levels. I want to see like people sleeping tracked, you know, menstrual cycle, what you name it. Guys, we need our entire life uploaded to League of Legends to figure this shit out.
So we will, you know, try to make it so that autofills are matched against autofills and things like that. And
Diet,
we're
true,
pretty
yeah.
accurate overall, so-
BMI.
Well, before I get voted out here real quick.
Not the last one you're
is
going to
there
do a
any way
Whippo.
actually make that public aside from just stating it. Like having some way for the
Guys,
players
you don't get sperm cramps? I was talking about mine.
to actually be able to see this information.
Women will never know what sperm cramps are like. It's tough out here.
And is there like any issues with
Okay,
that,
this
or
needs
any
to
way that
be
you could do that?
this
Because I think
needs
that
to
would
be
help.
timed out.
Like it's me personally.
Yeah, so I think we can say it, right? Players can do statistical analyses if they want. I know there was like a French PhD group
no,
that
I'm
was doing some analyses on whether losers clue exists, and they couldn't find anything. If you're asking us to open source our code, we're probably not going to do that. But I can tell you what we do, and you can run whatever statistical analysis you want. Like I'm all for that, and you can with the Riot
Showers
API,
per
so
week.
That is something that people can
Bro,
do.
they do
and,
showers per
yeah,
week. There'll never
I'm
be
very
any
confident that it
junglers.
doesn't
They'll
exist.
always be
All right, thank you.
autofilled.
I'll kick myself out now.
Nice to meet you.
New topic.
My next topic
Thank God.
is frequent patches are good for the game.
Ooh, okay, yeah. You know what? I mean, this one, Riot does this better than like any other company basically I've ever seen. You know, like personally, I don't think this game is remotely balanced, right? I'll preface that. I don't think League is remotely balanced, but I also think League is probably the most balanced game I've ever played. You know, like it's a really hard job. It's an impossible job, and they do a much better job of it than other companies. But they could still do a lot better. Like I'm not saying that they do it perfectly because they definitely don't. But I like the 2-week patch cadence. I think it's really good. In fact, I wish they would do a little more. I really feel like back in like, I don't know, I swear like back in like 2018 and 2019 and shit, like Riot used to do quite a bit more, you know? I think Riot used to do more changes in patches. I feel like nowadays it's not much. A lot of people complain that Riot doesn't do enough. Yeah, I mean, I just think that's like a more new thing though. Like maybe new, I mean, as in like the last like maybe 3 or 4 years. I really do think every 2 weeks, the meta would shift like a fair amount. They would buff and nerf like champs pretty majorly. Wait, that's just straight chair
Hi, I'm
advantage.
James.
Hi.
It's nice to meet you. I think 2-week patches are too frequent for the game.
Really?
I think coming from a StarCraft background, and also some people talk about TCGs, Super Smash, where you kind of figure out what's strong in the meta and you counter meta, and then that becomes the meta. And I think a good example is always like Worlds patches, where you keep the same patch for a longer period of time. And I don't think infrequent patches are good either. I think there should be a proper cadence. and like OPs or things that are like just too inherently broken, like funneling should be gone.
Sure.
But I think is a healthy balance between too frequently and infrequently, where we just need time to figure out how to break the meta or how to follow streamers or pro players and seeing like their unique view on the meta, and then seeing like, oh, we can follow them and breaking what is strong now.
So when I think of that,
I mean, like, okay, my take on that is just like, not every champ in the game is getting changed, right? Like, the meta is still gonna develop. I just think, like, the meta can be changed. Like the meta will still develop even if it's even if you change some of the champs, like just the champs that are unchanged will still change, right? Just like over time. I think, like, I don't know, maybe frequent patches would be bad if they were like really big. You know, for example, if they like one patch they add Atacon, the next patch they like change the dragons. You know, I think major things like that would be too much. But like items and champs, I think items and champs and runes probably should be changed like almost every patch.
I'm thinking that one of the things that you value is players being able to figure something out versus change happening overall. Because, you know, we could argue that changing the game frequently results in more change than waiting for pros to figure it out. Like, do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah.
Because there are many factors, for example, that result in pro players being unable to figure something out. You know, things like scrims, you know, you could waste everyone's time by saying, I'm going to play, I don't know, like Xerath bot or something, or Kayle mid, and then, you know, the team is trying to play around and they're like, we don't know how to make this work, right? And then so they might just end up defaulting to something safe. And so one of the things that
he's kind of onto something there, I think, for other reasons as well. Like, one thing in this game, and actually I think this kind of goes for everything, by the way, but it is much easier to be like the chaser than it is to be the one like figuring it out the first time. You know what I mean? Like, let's say that it turns out, I don't know, that Kayle mid is really OP. Let's use his example. So if Kayle mid's really OP, the first person that has to like figure out, okay, like, you know, what runes do we run? What items do we build? How do we play the matchups? You know, like, that takes a lot of time. It's quite difficult. And it's way easier for the next person to come in and be like, okay, I'm just going to copy this dude's build. I'm going to copy his items. I'm going to watch his VODs. And now all that time that you spent trying to figure out and develop Kayle mid, if your opponent is just getting better at the game, they're just getting better at the fundamentals, and then they come in and just essentially like steal all your work when they've done it, they would just be a better player than you. So I think as a pro, you're actually sort of encouraged not to what's the word? Not to innovate. You're mostly meant to focus on the fundamentals, I think. Like, obviously, there are times where if you can get like a niche pick at the right time for the right series or whatever, and they don't know about it, it can be good. But I would say, again, in general, just because copying is so OP and it saves so much time, you're much better off working on things that can't be easily copied, like fundamentals and like just getting better at the game itself. Balances more people's opinions of champs and actual champ strength. Don't you think, like, if Zilean was same pick rate as Mel, that shit would probably get instant nerfed? Yeah, probably. Like, there is something to be said for that. Yeah, I think perception is a huge thing. I'm not sure I, like, totally agree in the Zilean example, but yeah, I agree. Perception is a huge thing.
Toss up, and this is a conversation that we have a lot, is how much change is too much change, right? Like, on one hand, we want the game to change a lot because that helps the game feel fresh, and it helps,
I think so.
you know, people who play a lot feel like the game is changing. At the same time, how much can we rely on pro players or the player base at large to be able to change what is good in the game? And in many ways, our job is to make it so it's kind of petri dish or almost an ecosystem of things that are viable at any given time. And you can see this from, you know, say, for example, Alois playing Mundo. Like, we didn't change Mundo for ages. He just, you know, took that and was like, I'm going to make a brand out of playing Mundo. And as long as we make that true, there's a balance between doing that, leaving things in a state for them to be discovered, and also just forcibly changing things ourselves if we feel like there's not enough change in the game. So I do think it's a balance, and I do think your point is pretty valid.
Yeah. I also feel like the Mundo thing where he kind of just ran with it, but I think that's like a pro, like, positive point to what I'm trying to say, where there are things that are hidden, and I assume that you guys know what is kind of hidden underneath the hood, and not changing those things. Is that true, or is that kind of?
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, right? Like, there are certainly, it's a balance between having things settled enough that people can discover stuff organically.
Mhm.
And also when we notice that's not happening, to also change things forcibly on our end. So it's a balancing act.
Okay. And how do you guys kind of balance that against like the Worlds patch, where you have like 3 or 4 metas develop within like a month's time,
Yeah.
just because people are figuring things out and kind of like regions are clashing.
Yeah.
And so like, is there any plans to like kind of do more of that like during MSI? Like MSI is a shorter thing, but I think it could be a good thought experiment to like run like a longer patch during that time.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting thought experiment. A lot of what we think about when going into these major tournaments is just how deep does the meta go? We know that there are kind of things that are going to be strong. There are things that are going to be, you know, first order counters to that or second order counters to that. And also, honestly, the regions do a lot of the job for us, where they just bring different metas into the tournament and we get to see how that plays out. And I do think that that's exciting, and we don't really need to mess with that a lot. And so, yeah, that's generally our stance.
Yeah, I think it works fine. Honestly,
yeah.
they could do more changes. I think that's fine there.
Hello.
Hey, a fellow Matt. Nice to meet you.
Nice
Thanks
to
for all the
meet
work
you.
on the game.
Yeah.
So my opinion on this is, as the game has changed and evolved, I think that frequent patches, while good, sometimes that can be played around with, just because League has kind of shifted from where it was 5-10 years ago, with the seasons now being kind of split into 3 different parts. Preseason, I played in the Black Cleaver Pantheon preseason with stacking it right.
I'm sorry.
I think it was fun, but I think that a lot of those windows of experimenting with how you guys have designed the game have kind of been now built into the schedule. And so I'm thinking of changing the patch frequency around maybe fitting that schedule for both esports and also the player calendar, just for the general player base. And I'm kind of curious, like, from your perspective, if you were to go from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, or even just not be consistent and kind of shift the windows, like data-wise, how would that change for you? Because I'm kind of curious, like, there could be proponents of how that could like be positive for the player base, thinking of keeping them on the Worlds patch for the duration of the tournament. It's always something I've been a big proponent of.
Yeah, sure. I definitely think that there are pros and cons to any approach that we take. One of the things that's really important is that, players feel like there are periods of change.
Not much you can talk
Players also
about.
feel like there are periods of stability, right? And so that kind of informs how much we change each patch, right?
I don't know.
Like, if players
I
feel
swear 2 weeks is fine. Like, they could make it 4 weeks and change more things, I guess. But, like, I think if it can come, like, a little more frequently, it's good. Stuff like +5 damage is useless buff. I'd like something which changes the gameplay. Yeah, I think it's normally, I don't know, they're just, like, scared, I guess, of, like, fucking things up, honestly. But I really think they used to do a really good job of this. I swear, like, Riot balancing, look, again, it's never been balanced, but Riot balancing, I think, used to be quite fun back in, like, I don't know, let's say, like, 2017 to, like, 2020 or something. I feel like there really was, like, something different, like, every week, basically.
like the game is good, there's kind of not much reason to change it. On the flip side, if players feel like the game is bad, then yeah, we should be changing a lot of stuff, right? And so typically what we'll see is that, especially in the beginning of the year, like the early patches that we had this year, we were changing a lot of stuff, right? Because there was a lot of stuff that was like pretty messed up. There was a lot of stuff that was also just like pretty useless, right? And so we want to make it so that
they
players
didn't nerf
who
him
love these
best,
champions and have played them for years don't feel like they're just griefing the game by playing something, for example. And so we definitely like modulate based on what we feel the community needs.
Yeah, I think a lot of the modulating does take place within like that set 2 week window where it's like, hey, every 2 weeks we're gonna make change. We might have a lot of changes for this or not as much, just depending on what the calendar's like.
Yeah.
How would like then shifting up a window where, again, opening up for the duration of Worlds, like I think a lot of the changes that have been made, this is very esports lens for game design,
Totally.
but it is kind of keeping the game similar for people playing it at home with how they've shifted where esports lies. So part of that would be live
I just think
patches.
people
I
don't
think
care
even
about
Fearless
that,
Draft
honestly.
a little bit encourages
I
more
just think people
champions
don't care
being in
about
the
that at
game.
all.
So
The average
like, if there
person,
were to be
like, I don't think they give a fuck that they're playing the same patch as the pros. You know what I mean? I think it's important that it's like the same game, but like, I don't think they care at all. Speaking of someone who only got into League recently, I just like how it feels like I build the same items and there aren't many items that added skill expression. Yeah, I agree. I think
a
League
6-week
itemization is pretty
Worlds
boring.
patch window, because I think this is kind of looking at League as a marketing arm, but also like just kind of the impacts. I'm curious if the impacts that it would have on you, or also just the proponents of like, hey, maybe that is a lever we could pull to make sure that the game that these guys are watching for a biggest event is the same game they're playing at home.
Yeah, there is definitely that consideration, and it's one that we've thought about
Better than
a
ever
lot.
Frost.
Like, how do we value players, like pro players, practicing on the Worlds patch, and the value of keeping that stable versus, let's just say, I don't know, nothing a champion that doesn't get seen in pro play that's like terrorizing, regular play, for example. Those are the considerations that we have, and we ultimately like just have to trade off in some situations. So yeah, that League is played by many different people, and certainly many millions of people who are not interested in pro play whatsoever, but come home and
Yeah,
get
that's
frustrated by
extremely
Garen
true.
hiding in a bush and one-shotting them, right? So we need to think about those audiences as well and just try and balance all their needs together. Yeah.
It is hard.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. My take is Riot does a good job of releasing new champions.
Ooh, okay, guys, what do you think of this one? Riot does a good job of releasing new champions. Okay, I'm gonna like soft agree on this. I think Riot's new champs are pretty fun, and I think they're also pretty unique. I do think they're pretty imbalanced. Like, I just think a champ like Mbessa is just like such bullshit. And like, same with Cassante, I think it's like kind of bad when you just know the new champ is gonna like terrorize the game for like literal years to come. Okay, I think that's like kind of bad. So I don't know. They do, again, credit to Riot. They do a good job of making them fun, and they are unique, but they're very imbalanced. A lot of them are straight up broken. Yeah, and I think they do say exactly what Biddy just said. Like, the new champs are overpowered on purpose. Like, one, because people have to learn them. And two, just like because they want to encourage them to play them. Like, that makes sense. But I do think they're imbalanced on like not just a numbers level, but on like a kit level. Like, I don't actually think Mbessa could ever be balanced. I think unless you just make Mbessa do no damage, that champion will just be broken forever, I think. How do you fix Mbessa? They just need to chop her legs off or something.
I'm partly back up here because I was thinking while I was sitting down. There's one way to clear up the losers queue thing forever. You can just swear on your mom that it's not real, and then you can just shake my hand, swear on your mom that it's not real, and I'll just believe you forever.
What? This guy's hijacking the question?
Anyways, for the conspiracy theorists out there. Anyway, the new champions thing. I was actually looking at the list of new champions the other day, and I was thinking, wow, these champions have all been... I was like, when was the last champion I really loved? I think it was Set.
Oh, that's kind of
I think it was Set.
sad.
How do you think the new champions have been going? Have they been successful?
I mean, no, I like
So,
Yunara.
when I think of the new champions, there's definitely different design philosophies we had for each of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Some of them were designed to be simple champions. Maybe they didn't end up being so simple. Some did succeed in being simple. Some were designed to be, a little more difficult to play against in some situations and succeeded at doing that. But kind of like what I was saying before, there is value in having our champion releases sometimes draw a lot of, difficult complaints about how to play against them, and people learn how to play against them and experience all of those up and downs that come with the champion release.
Okay. How would you define a champion's
Ups
release
and
being a
downs,
success?
So I think that a champion being popular or having an audience, is one defining factor. A champion having healthy gameplay, so it has good counterplay in some situations, and that doesn't need to mean it has counterplay in every situation, right? Like sometimes if a Rengar is 12-0, he's just going to one-shot you, right? And that's just the game. But also that the champion has a resonant fantasy, and it has a player base that really loves the champion, and they can do things that are really awesome that no other champion can do. I think those are really the things that we care a lot about when releasing a successful champion.
Yeah, there's been a few lackluster ones for me. I'm not sure if you guys are hitting the mark there.
Yeah.
But I think it's really hard with 169 champions to design something unique. So I think you guys have a really hard job cut out for you.
Yeah. So every champion's not meant for every player as well. Is the other thing,
that makes sense.
And so it's like, even if you don't like it, maybe someone else does.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I was... Hey, bro, he fucking pre-fired that shit.
That's a big M for you.
Big M.
Hello, my name is a Big M. And I was actually paying attention to your conversation earlier where you mentioned how your guys' main objectives when you release a new champion are mainly the popularity and the health of the champion. And I believe those are, to a degree, inherently contradictory. Because if a champion is unhealthy, that's sort of what incentivizes a high play rate. For example,
I mean, that's definitely
Cassante
true in
was,
high ranks.
I don't remember the exact number, but I'm pretty sure the pick slash ban rate was.
Okay,
probably
that's like sort of
abs-
true, but like there's also a lot of champs that like kind of suck that have high play rates, right? Like a good example would be something like Yasuo, right? Like let's be honest, guys. Like what is Yasuo's pick rate in gold? It's like one of the highest mids. Like let's just look right now. Yeah, Ezreal. That's another good example. Now I'm just gonna go like, okay, if I go gold, I'm literally gonna look at gold global. Oh my god, I'm getting fucking gapped by OPG. Gold global. Like what's the highest pick rate mid? Yeah, it's fucking Yasuo. I knew it would be. So, like, this champ clearly sucks. You know, it's like, and it's even more so for a gold player. But it's still, like, super high played. And so, like, I don't know. I don't think that's, like, entirely true. Like, if the champ is really fun, it will get played, even if it sucks. I think that making it strong is, like, it's like a band-aid fix, almost. You know, like, if a champ is boring as fuck, but it's strong, it will also get played. So, I don't know. Technically, it's balanced 50% win rate? I suppose so, yeah. I feel like Yasuo should have less than 50% win rate in gold. I don't know, but how much of this, like, dude, this is an exact 50%. Like, how much of this is, like, the Yasuo players only play Yasuo, and so, like, they just trend towards 50%. You know what I'm saying? Like, if Yasuo is weak, they're just, like, 2 ranks below where they should be. Or, you know what I mean? Yasuo is decent, is he not? I think Yasuo sucks. I think he's, like, Thanos for the first 10 minutes, but team fighting on this champ is like way too hard. Like, I don't know. I think Yone's like way better.
absurdly high on release. And that's because the champion was so unhealthy. And I do feel like when we look at the roster of champions, especially recent ones, there have been a few misses. So for example, Briar, again, I don't have these numbers off the top of my head, but I assume her pick rate is pretty low comparative.
Yeah, true. No
And
one
I feel
really
like
plays Briar.
her niche or her
Donny
role
House's
isn't
to
really
raids.
that
Yes, there's
defined. I
some
think she's
combos
relatively
that are
weak
super broken.
for that reason. When we look at other champions, for example, I think the ones that will probably get mentioned or thought of the most are Cassandra and Aphelios on release. Those champions were, in my opinion, pretty unbalanced. Every time Aphelios pressed ult, I would get a buzz cut. And then there's other champions that are functionally Labubus. So I feel like for that reason,
Lover.
I
Yeah,
think for that
I
reason,
guess.
if we're playing semantics, I feel like
Sorry, what does a champion being a Labubu mean?
well,
Yeah,
kinda
good question,
useless,
bro. What the
cosmetic.
fuck
Yeah,
does
like,
that mean?
largely cosmetic, right?
Agree with Labubu. I'm just kidding.
So for that reason, I feel like if we're playing semantics, I feel like Riot is at best mediocre on releasing new champions
Ooh,
because of the
damn.
argument you mentioned inherently. And then we look at some of the evidence releases.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting take. I definitely think that we've had some hits and some misses, but one of the things that's pretty important is that when I say popular, I mean every champion has people that love them, you know? And that can mean, in some cases, a lot of people, if it's a really broad theme. We know that some themes are going to be more or less resonant than others, right? Like if you have a, you know, a Yunara type character, she's going to be pretty popular, kind of regardless of her
She's a
power
bad
level,
bitch
just
for
because
real.
she's got a really appealing aesthetic, she's got very
That's
smooth gameplay.
But really
and these types of
appealing
things.
aesthetic.
Whereas some
That's
champions
right.
that might be, you know, a little more aesthetically polarizing might be, you know, a little less popular. But that's okay, as long as they have people that love them. You know what I mean? And so,
Oh my god.
in a sense, it's important that the champion is there for somebody. And the other thing that I kind of want to unpack a bit is when you talk about a champion being popular is typically tied to them being unhealthy. I don't know if I quite agree with
Yeah, I
that
don't
take.
agree with
Like,
that fully.
would you say that, for example, a Jhin or an
I mean, specifically
Ezreal?
on release, by the
Oh,
way.
specifically on release.
Specifically
Yeah.
on release. I think over time that plays out differently, but specifically
On
on
release?
the
I mean,
play rate is
like,
depending on how strong it is. For
I don't
example,
know.
if the champion is some bullshit, no one's picking it.
Sure. Yeah, it definitely increases the popularity.
Yeah.
I will say that. But also, sometimes when we release champions, they're kind of underpowered, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes we release them and they're a little too strong, you know? But I do think that in general, champions on release tend to be pretty popular, you know? Kind of
Yeah,
regardless
people just wanna
of
try
their
them.
power level or whether they're healthy or unhealthy. But I would say that, yeah, certainly like in situations where they do have a mechanic that's very, you know, considered quite polarizing, they're of course going to attract a lot of people that are interested in playing it. Yeah.
But for that reason, then, would you feel like the champions are popular because of their identity, or is the fact that it's just a new champion? Because I feel like if they're popular just by merit of being a new champion, is that really considered a success on the behalf of Riot?
Yeah, so we think of long-term popularity, right? Like, did they hold an audience in the long term? Did that audience really love them and stick with that champion and have them become their main?
Would you say you're satisfied with the success rate of most of the recent champions?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head that don't have an audience or don't have, you know, situations where they have a lot of healthy gameplay. And so, you know, sometimes it's taken us a while to get them into that state. But I would say that looking at the roster now of the champions that we've released recently, yeah, I can't think of any that don't have strengths and weaknesses and don't have an audience. Thanks, man. And now we're going to let one of the Redditors pick a topic to debate.
Oh, God. That's not good. Okay, they get Raz.
Already nervous. Palms are sweaty.
So, G.
Hi.
Palms are also sweaty.
Yeah, there
They're
we
rusty.
go. Hi, I'm Raz, and I believe that the bounty system, and specifically the objectives bounties, are a bit unbalanced.
Oh, W. Holy shit, dude. What an actual banger. Like, I believe that shit, like, 100%, okay? The bounty system in this game is so fucking bad. Like, okay, it's like, total bullshit that you have, like, the same bounty, basically, no matter how... like, hard it is for you to, like, live or die. You know, like, for example, I remember they talked about this ages ago. Like, if you have a 700 gold bounty on, like, I don't know, like Echo, compared to a 700 gold bounty on something like Oriana, that is a completely different experience, you know? Because one of those champs, at some point, is just going to die. And I used to be of the opinion that, like, okay, like, realistically, everything is, like, outplayable, you know, like, you can position better, etc. But I think with the way power has crept in this game, there are some things that you just will die to, you know, like, things like Mbessa ult, you know, like, or, you know, Mbessa ult from Fog, I guess, like, there are, in theory, ways to play around it, right? But there are some things where if the counterplay is like, all right, bro, just, like, fucking sit in Fountain because you don't have Flash, like, I feel like that's really shit. I think also, another thing that's really annoying with the bounty system is it's really RNG, you know, like, it should feel, I think it's really dumb that, like, okay, if you die and the gold, like, goes to the support, that it was actually a good death, especially because you can't really control that. You know, like, again, if you die and say the Alistair picks up the 700 gold instead of the Jinx, you know, like, that is just completely different. You know, like, that's insane. In fact, like, they probably lost, actually, because the bounty went to the wrong person, and they're not going to get another one, or they're not going to get another big one. So I think they should either have, like, more smaller bounties, you know, so, like, rather than having it all on one person, have it, like, spread out, but, like, cap a lot lower, or they should just spread it between people that, like, get KP on the kill. I would be down for that. Like, you can have the kill gold go to the person that killed them, but spread the bounty amongst the people that, like, got the takedown, right? Like, anyone that got an assist or anything. I think that's way better. I want to hear what he says, because I hate the bounty system.
And really
it's very
to play
unfair.
against because, like, at least for me, at least with the current bounty system, when you're going for a champion, that is easier to deal with. But now you're incentivized as the winning team to try and stop action from happening. Let's say if you want to make a play towards the bot side of the map, and let's say someone like a Tryndamere is split pushing top, especially in this meta where turret plates are available, you're like, damn, now he's going to get turret plates and objective bounties top side. Like, that can really spiral top side. So instead of, like, creating action, I'm trying to slow the game down.
Okay, actually, I don't agree with that.
Deny that from happening. So now it's
I think objective bounties are actually fine.
To the objective.
Oh, wait, yeah, he
bounties,
said
and it feels like
specifically the objective bounty. I actually think the objective bounties are fine. I think it's
something
champ
that's just
bounties
slowing
that
the
are
game
fine.
down and detracting us from wanting to speed the game in general. And then another problem that I have with objective or just bounties in general is that if you're on quote unquote the losing side, you are now kind of immune from bounties as a team. Like, let's say you have a top laner, gonna still use the Tryndamere example, very fed, but his team is really losing.
Yeah.
Well, suddenly he doesn't have a bounty on his name, but he can collect bounties from the opposing team because theoretically they're far ahead. And I think that is frustrating to deal with, especially if it's, let's say, a Kale, like a scaling element, but on a losing team. But you're playing like Pantheon, maybe something that's like a Samira that isn't scaling, but you're far ahead. And you're like, wait a minute. Game state actually makes it so they're in a pretty good position.
He's an analyst, yeah.
But we're the ones with the bounties. So I think I would like it for champion bounties to be spread apart for both the winning team and the losing team. So you can collect bounties no matter what. But objective bounties, I just generally don't like.
Do you think that there should be comeback mechanics in general in League?
Yes. I mean, I love the dopamine of being able to come back and making the correct plays in general to come back. So I do agree some.
How do you think teams that are behind should be able to come back?
Okay, I think in theory, the best form of comeback mechanics are, like, I don't know how to like put it, but like natural comeback mechanics. So I'll give you guys an example. Like defender's advantage is a natural comeback mechanic, or having to siege like difficult terrain that like favors the defender. I think those are like the best systems that aren't like a heavy hand of the scale of like, okay, we have like an artificial system to make sure you guys can come back. I think things like that are good. Or another good example is stuff like Baron dealing more damage to people. So it's like if they start Baron at a bad time, you can like kill them. I think those sort of things are better than just like straight goal. But I also think that, I mean, they have to have something. I just think the current bounty system's like kind of overtuned. Now, the real question is, why are we rewarding teams that make numerous mistakes, fall behind? Why are we giving them a chance to get back in the first place? I think with how snowbally the game has become, you kind of have to have that because, like, straight up, you can just get too much gold too fast. Now, if they, like, reduce the acceleration, you could also make it, yeah, like a little more like punishing, I guess, to come back into the game. But the problem is like the game just explodes on a dime at the moment. And so like if these comeback mechanics or these like rubber band things weren't in the game would just be over like 10 minutes,
Being able to come back based off champion bounties is correct. Like if there is a really fed champion on the enemy team, being able to band together as a squad to be able to like focus them down, I think that is very rewarding. And I liked it since the beginning of the game.
Yeah, so what is the difference between players when they're behind banding together to take somebody down as opposed to banding together to take an objective or take a tower when they're behind?
I think there should be an innate difficulty in being able to take down a bounty. If you're a smart team and you recognize that you like the stronger team going for a dragon, it is not difficult for, let's say, for us to trade and to send our top laner and a jungler to take topside bounty for the plates. And I mean, for the turret itself. So I think there's zero difficulty in being able to trade sides of the map, whereas the team that is ahead suddenly has to second think every choice that they are making in terms of
I don't really agree with
progressing.
Raz's take here. I think objective bounties are totally fine. Ain't it just you and your team's fault if the one guy who's fit in the enemy team can't be shut down if all his teammates are useless anyway? Yeah, I think, again, like, I don't think that's, like, that much of an issue. I really just think it's, like, too RNG with, like, who the bounty can go to, and, like, slightly too unfair because some champs are, like, much more killable than others. And that's a real problem when the bounty is so high. I think if the bounty were capped lower, it would be fine, but like a 700 gold bounty on a squishy carry with no flash is like more or less free, whereas like a 700 gold bounty on like a Mundo or something is like a hell of a lot harder to claim,
Yeah, so I agree that bounties have some behavior where when you're ahead, the optimal play is sometimes to protect your bounty, right? And so one of the main mechanisms we have against that is things like ambient gold or just gold acquisition in general, because it means that a player who gets very ahead is kind of like losing if they do anything. And so we try and bake that risk into the game naturally so that the behind team has an opportunity to take bounties, but the ahead team also needs to do something with their lead, because otherwise the behind team is just going to catch up, right? Like the gold lead is going to close. At the same time, when we think about bounties, we also want the defensive team, the defending team, to be able to take aggressive action, right? And so if a team's ahead, normally what happens is they'll death ball and they'll control all the vision, and there's just like innately no way for the losing team to come back. So we want to find a way for the losing team to be able to put themselves at risk, like send a Tryndamere into the side lane, but also that has to have some reward to it. And so that's kind of why we have that structure. Now, I could believe that when a team is behind and they're trying to take a bounty, sometimes that's too easy. But that's also kind of by design, right? Like we can't have a comeback system or a bounty system where it's just like not possible to come back, right? So I could believe that we have tuned it in a way that it is too easy to trade. But at the same time, we do think that structurally the risk and reward profile of it is in a decent spot. So maybe we need to do some changes to like the actual rewards or the actual difficulty of claiming the bounties when you're behind and things like that. Yeah, I think it's very...
Ain't a 700 gold bounty on Mundo a lot harder to obtain for the Mundo though, another squishy carry? Like maybe, like yeah, I kind of agree with that, but I'm not sure I like fully agree with that. Like I think it's not the case that, like tanks and bruises aren't dealing damage, right? Like just look at things like Cassante or Zag, right? It's not that these champs are not dealing damage, right? In fact, it's like not even close. These champs hit like insanely fucking hard.
All right, thanks a lot. That makes sense for me. I appreciate it.
Yes. The role power question was my favorite topic to debate because there's no right answer. and everybody can have a different
Yeah,
valid
that
opinion.
was interesting. That was, I mean, that was a fucking good video. I'll be honest. Like, that was a hella good video. W content.